The Batman Part 2 is back on track. We've gotten some details from Matt Reeves of who the mysterious villain might be, but we're going to solve the case in true Batman fashion for you right now and tell you who it is. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Strong Collectors Comics. My name is Jordan, joined today as ever by my plucky co-host Dakota. Now, Matt Reeves has been doing some interviews recently. We don't quite know who he's going to be featuring in the Batman Part 2, but we did get a few snippets of information, and the internet has naturally gone into speculation overdrive. So the information that we did get is that the Batman Part 2 will be a Bruce Wayne-centric film. He mentioned this idea that a lot of the times sequels of superheroes, once you get the hero established, you start going into all kinds of focusing on the villain and that kind of thing. So he wants it to stick with focusing on Bruce Wayne, whether it's this movie or a potential third one, which I think is a good call. He also said the villain will be digging into Bruce Wayne's past, and it is a villain who has, quote, never really been done in a movie before. So I've got some ideas on maybe what that might be. Dakota, though, I guess when you hear that information, when you think of that, is there anything that comes to mind for you right now? Because I think there's what the internet has speculated, which we could get into that. But what is your take?
I mean, I was trying to, narrow out what has been done. We've had, a couple Jokers, a couple Riddlers, a couple Two-Faces, Banes, Poison Ivy's been there. So,
right.
I think the first, as you're saying that, the first thing that comes to mind is like a Court of Owls type of story. Because I feel like that can be very, Bruce Wayne could be trying to with all these other rich people trying to discover who's part of this secret organization. It's never been in any of the movies before because it's a newer set of villain society. So I think that's where my mind went first off. And I think that also plays well into the vibe of the Batman movies because they took a more dark serial killer approach to a Riddler, which is sometimes a little bit more of a goofy character, made it more serious and dark within that universe. So I could see them doing that there. I could also, I don't know for sure if they would, but again, before we started talking, I was thinking maybe a Black Mask because again, that's more something Bruce Wayne would maybe be in that world of a criminal underground mob type.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess I do think technically with Black Mask they did use him in that Harley Quinn movie, which I didn't watch.
True.
But so that I don't know how strict. I don't know if Matt Reeves even watched the Harley. I don't know if anybody watched that Harley Quinn movie. I certainly
did watch that movie, and I don't remember Black Mask even a little bit in that movie.
Well, there you go. So maybe he's still in the running. I do think Court of Owls is one that I remember hearing even when the first Batman came out. It's always those things where they're like, oh, if you look at the seats in the city hall, they look like owls, which is I don't know. It feels like a bit of a stretch sometimes.
Sure.
But I do think the general framework of that was there's this deep-seated corruption, and it goes way deeper than you can imagine. So the idea of a secret society of the rich and wealthy controlling Gotham, pulling the strings, dating way back into history, I think could make a lot of sense. And that could tie into, even in that first one where he's finding things out about his dad. And it's maybe he wasn't, kind of got involved in some things I wish he hadn't, or, blurred the lines a little bit. So I think that motif could fit pretty well with the Batman. And I think that could open the world a bit to have some interesting things. So I do think Court of Owls is a good contender. One that I also thought of, and I've heard this speculated a lot as well, is Hush.
I was just thinking that too.
I remember there was an excerpt of a newspaper. It talks about, Thomas Elliot. And so then people are like, oh, is it? Because remember, he's got the childhood connection to Bruce Wayne and that stuff. I will say, I would be okay with Hush, but I think you'd need to, I don't know, though. I don't know if I actually want Hush. But if you did, I think you'd have to do some significant remixing or updating. Because my problem with that would be, in the Winter Soldier Captain America, I think the cool thing in the comics was you didn't know who the Winter Soldier was, and there's the twist of, oh my gosh, that's Bucky. There's really was none of that suspense going into the movie because you're obviously this is Bucky, or even the general audience, I think, could gather just from hearsay or talking, that's going to be Bucky. So really none of the twist of the comic, I think, would be preserved if you're like, here's, you know, Hush, and who is he? And you reveal who it is. So maybe if
Right.
you took like that premise and tweaked it a little bit to somehow reinterpret it,
Hmm.
but I almost would rather them not do that at that point for me, because it's like, I don't know. I think you can make it work,
Hmm.
but I doubt it would be a straight up Hush, or at least I hope it's not. And you change it up a bit.
Yeah.
I do like the Court of Owls premise.
Hmm.
Another one that I thought of was Hugo Strange,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
because we really haven't seen Hugo Strange in movies, and he would be new, and you could easily kind of dovetail that into. I guess I've got a pitch for Hugo Strange. I got
All
a
right.
pitch for several of these ones on the list. I don't know how
Okay.
many you've got that you want to
No,
throw
no, go
out
for
there
it.
as candidates, though. Before I okay, so I guess with Hugo Strange, so the ones that I had on my list were Hush, Court of Owls, Hugo Strange, and he wouldn't be the main bad guy, but I would love to see him, and I think he could fit. Is my guy Professor Pig? So I think with a Hugo Strange, I think I could thread three of these together, maybe. So you could have Hugo Strange, obviously the psychiatrist, maybe in this world, Bruce Wayne's psychiatrist as a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe after his parents died, maybe before. If before, you could tie it into the Waynes a little bit, but maybe it's like, Thomas Wayne's buddy got him hooked up with Hugo Strange. Maybe some of that psychological programming subtly.
Yeah.
You could have some of those like Zur-NR code words things. Maybe some of that
Ooh.
weaves in. Or you could do that. Or it's like Hugo Strange, maybe in modern era, at least with a psych profile, can put together this kid, Bruce Wayne, is probably Batman. He's kind of put these pieces together, right? Working at Arkham, maybe maybe you start Professor Pig's running around with Hugo Strange. You find out, because Professor Pig, I always liked his pretty creepy element. He does the
Hmm.
psychological stuff, brainwashing people, turning them into the Dollatron drones. Is he doing his work at Arkham? Maybe under the behest of Hugo Strange, working on some psychological programming. He gets loose. Batman's got to chase down that thread. Somehow it loops back into Hugo Strange, who maybe we set this up in this movie for a third one, some kind of Court of Owls connection,
Yeah.
pulling the Strange behind, because he kind of got Professor Pig. I think he'd be like a minor bad guy. I don't think you could do a whole movie
Right.
around him, but I think he would be a fun kind of serial killer, creepy vibe, and
Hmm.
you could interpret him. Maybe that connects or leads into Hugo Strange, and then maybe there's some kind of thread into the bigger Court of Owls storyline. And that to me, Court of Owls almost feels like it should be a culmination. I don't know if I'd really want Court of Owls like in its entirety to hit in this second movie,
Sure.
but maybe you could like have that going on like more in the background, maybe directly.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of leaning as I pitch it to you. I think a Hugo Strange would be pretty cool.
Yeah. 'Cause
And I'd
I
love
could
Professor
see
Pig.
that like that thread being expanded on in like the HBO animated series of like we're gonna like go through time and like maybe each episode is following a different time period of Court of Owls pulling the
Okay,
strings,
yeah.
creating like Gotham from the old west. Maybe you get your Jonah Hex in there, or even
Oh,
tie in
yeah.
a whole Jonah Hex movie where Court of Owls is a part of it. Is it like subtly, not like his main villains or anything, maybe, but then you're kind of threading that through.
Are you thinking that that's like in a DCU setting, or are you saying in its own, the Batman world?
Probably in the Batman world.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I
like-
don't. That maybe seems like they're expanding two universes too much at the same time,
Right.
which to us nerds would be okay,
I
but
love that.
to,
Well,
to the general public,
yeah.
they might be a little confused. But I don't
I
think they're so
think-
crazy where it's like wait, the old West Gotham is Court of Owls, but that's not showing up in Superman.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I think people could handle that. I think
Yeah.
what you could do, it's like kind of the Penguin style, where you could have certain things introduced in a second one that spin off. Like once you establish, okay, this is the Court of Owls, this is what they do. They're not defeated, but you know about this threat. Maybe there could be an HBO show that kind of goes back or fills in some of the blanks to kind of set you up for the third one. Like how Penguin, set up probably a lot of events for the Batman Part 2. Maybe another show setting up events for a third finale one. And I guess they do have the dangling thread of Joker, which was in like a deleted
Right.
scene, not used, kind of used.
Hmm.
But again, I think I'd almost rather him maybe show up in the second one, but not be the main guy. I think you should do him in a third one.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, because I don't really think you can do even like a solo Joker as the villain. I feel like it's been so done, it's hard to pull that off. I mean, I think you could
Sure.
have him, but I don't mind the idea, like how they did Riddler Penguin basically in the first one. He's got Riddler Penguin Catwoman. If you had a second one, Hugo Strange, my guy Professor Pig, and then maybe a third is like Court of Owls Joker. I feel like that's a pretty good amount of Batman bad guys for a trilogy. Like I'd almost rather, because people talked about Mr. Freeze and stuff. I think I'd almost rather see Mr. Freeze get the DCU treatment. I think similar guys like Killer Croc, maybe more of those out there ones, kind of save
Yeah.
those guys for there.
I would be interested to see what a Mr. Freeze in this Batman style would be,
Yeah.
because it would be so different than the Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze.
Right. Yeah. And I guess it would have to be that blend for me of, yeah, how like sci-fi do you want to go with still being grounded? So I guess with this smattering of bad guys, Dakota, I've also heard people say Calendar Man. I don't
was
think
kinda
Calendar Man
thinking
could
him, but
carry
I
a
was like,
movie though.
No, not at all. I was thinking maybe Mad Hatter,
Yeah.
but again, it's another like I don't think you could do an entire movie. Which I mean, I think it seems like the DC movies and shows are trying to like spotlight more of those maybe hidden gems of characters to like bring them into the spotlight. So, but even still, like I still don't see Calendar Man as being elevated to the level of Joker and Two-Face.
No, I don't think so either. And I think we're going to keep generally probably the grounded feeling. So I guess based on this smattering, Dakota, since we promised we're going to crack the case, we're going to tell the people, what are we seeing in the Batman Part 2 for a bad guy from these ideas discussed? What does your heart tell you?
I mean, I think you've pretty much told them already. It's going to be kind of threading that Hugo Strange from the childhood Bruce Wayne trauma into, his strings are being pulled a little bit by the Court of Owls. I think you've got Professor Pig underneath as as an older Bruce Wayne. Professor Pig is under Hugo Strange, and I think again, like you said, I think we're going to keep sprinkling the Joker in to drag the people along. And he's going to be kind of like a chaos that even the Court of Owls is kind of like, okay, this new guy in town is really throwing a wrench in our plans here.
He's a wild card.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you thinking Court of Owls could be the main villain of the second, or do you think people are reaching with that idea?
I think I'm going to say, like, we're going to, like, know about the Court of Owls in the second, but I don't think Batman's going to, like, come face to face with, like, the room of whatever, like, the actual court. It's just going to be kind of like, he meets somebody and they're like, oh, yeah, Court of Owls, secret handshake type of thing. And he's going to be like, I don't really want to join this group. Or maybe he's like trying to infiltrate, make it seem like he's trying to join.
As
he's not
Bruce
getting to the
Wayne.
top.
Oh, maybe
Right.
that's the Bruce Wayne-centric part, though. You could say Bruce Wayne is trying to weave his way into this shady group while he's dealing with some other threat, i.e. a Professor Pig, somebody like that that's running around. And I think you could balance all that. But I the more I'm thinking about it, I'm really getting on Hugo Strange. And I don't know if it'll happen or if I'm wishing, but I'm going to put a pin in Hugo Strange. Because I think he could dig into the Bruce Wayne-centric. You could connect it to his past. There's so many like psychological layers. And he might not be your standard Arkham psychiatrist evil guy. You could probably reinterpret him to be a little, maybe less supervillainy, but also I think pretty grounded and bringing some psychological layers. But Matt Reeves, if he's not in there, please write in at least a little Professor Pig, because he'd be perfect. Well, there you have it, folks. Everything that's going to happen in the Batman Part 2. Don't even bother reading online speculation anymore. Please be liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, as always, stay strong.